Greetings, Queens. Welcome to this month's Queen Call, July 28, 2016 Queen's Call. And our theme for this month is a Queen's position in a time of war. A Queen's position in a time of war. But before we begin, as always, we would love and like to open up in prayer. So just in the position that you're comfortable receiving the grace and the love of God. In the name of God, the beneficent, the merciful, O God, I seek thy refuge from anxiety and grief, and I seek thy refuge from lack of strength and laziness, and I seek thy refuge from cowardice and niggardliness, and I seek thy refuge from being overpowered by debt and the oppression of men. And, O God, suffice thou me that which is lawful, to keep me away from what is prohibited, and with thy grace make me free from want of what is besides thee. And God, we seek your help and we ask your mercy, for we believe in you and trust in you for all that we need. And we are your helpers in your cause with your apostles. So please grant us success. Amen. Again, welcome, welcome, welcome. So if you have been living under a rock, then you haven't been seeing what's been going on in the world, especially here in the United States, dealing with social justice issues. We're watching our children being gunned down senselessly by police violence and brutality. And so on today's call, we're going to talk about what state and time we're in, and we're actually in a time of war. And how do we as queens conduct ourselves? What positions do we take in this time of war? And on today's call, we're going to talk to a beautiful and a strong warrior queen mother by the name of Janet Baker. And we'll go into her bio, but this woman has endured some tragic loss in her life, but she's taken that tragedy and she's taken that misery and she's allowed it to be her ministry. And not only is she helping herself to strengthen herself, she's advocating on behalf of her son, but she has joined with a group of women that we call the Mothers of the Movement, who've endured this senseless violence of police brutality, and it's a sisterhood that no one wants to be a part of, but nonetheless they are part of this sisterhood, and then they have encircled with each other to give each other power so that they can reach out into the world and help find justice for their children and find justice for other mothers as well. So again, my name is Queen Sadia Evangelista, and you are on this month's July Queen Call, and this is Queendom Come Incorporated. So I want to give a few statistics. Now, in 2015, there were over 430 black and brown men and women who were killed by senseless police violence. This year alone, and we're in July, we have seen 215 deaths at the hands of police. Now, we talked about the mothers of the movement, and we've heard the Trayvon Martins, and we've heard the Eric Garners, and the Michael Browns, and the Sandra Blands, and we lift them up. But on today, we're going to hear from Sister Janet Baker, who lost her son locally here in Houston through the Houston Police Department. And her son was an unarmed man, like so many of the unarmed men we are seeing right now. And we're seeing it, we're watching it stream live, real time, watching the senseless murders of our black men and our black women. So I wanted to define some words. One of the words I want to define is a position. What is the meaning of a position? It is a place where someone or something is located or has been put. And we're talking about what is the queen's position in a time of war. So let's define what war is. War is a state of armed conflict between different nations or states or different groups within a nation. And what we are actually seeing is a time of armed conflict between different groups of people. We see the armed conflict between the police against the unarmed victims, the black men and black women. And then we have the victims who are left over, who are the parents, who are the mothers, who are the fathers, who are the family members who have to deal with the legacy of this violence. And so today we want to honor those mothers who are standing up to speak against this senseless violence. And so I'm going to say their names, and with me you say their names as well. So we lift up and we honor Gwen Carr, the mother of Eric Garner. Gwen Carr is a New York City subway driver, or who was a city subway driver until July 2014, when her son Eric was strangled by a police officer in Staten Island. Eric Garner was 43 at the time, and he was approached by the police officer who heard he was illegally selling cigarettes, and the encounter escalated to the point where Eric Garner was in a chokehold on the ground saying, "I can't breathe." And so on today, we honor Gwen Carr, the mother of Eric Garner. And we honor Sabrina Fulton, the mother of Trayvon Martin. And it's through the senseless death of Trayvon Martin that we have hashtag the Black Lives Matter movement. And so Trayvon Martin's case captivated America in the summer of 2012. And he was the black teen who was shot by the vigilante George Zimmerman, who called himself a watch coordinator. And we saw that Trayvon Martin was on trial for his own death as George Zimmerman was exonerated. And so we lift up Sabrina Fulton on today. And so we would like to lift up Maria Hamilton, the mother of Dontre Hamilton. Dontre Hamilton was a paranoid schizophrenic who had other mental health issues, and he was sleeping on a park bench in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. After a call to police that Hamilton was disturbing the peace, the police officer attempted to pat him down. The incident escalated and culminated with the officer shooting Hamilton 14 times. The officer was not indicted. However, the district attorney said that the shots were justified. But he was fired from the department for an illegal pat-down of someone who was mentally ill. So we would like to honor and uplift Mother Maria Hamilton. And we would like to hold up Queen Lucy McBath, the mother of Jordan Davis. And in 2012, Jordan Davis and his friends were playing music out of their car in Jacksonville, Florida. Unhappy with the volume, Michael Dunn, a 47-year-old software developer, told Davis to turn the music down. The ensuing argument led to the death of the 17-year-old after Dunn fired 10 bullets into the car. He was convicted on multiple counts in 2014 and sentenced to life in prison plus 90 years. And so his queen mother, Lucy McBath, forgave Dunn an emotional public statement during his trial. And she said, "I choose to walk in freedom of knowing God's justice has been served. I pray that God's mercy on your soul," she told Dunn. And since then, Mother McBath has spoken out against gun violence around the country, including during a February event with Clinton in South Carolina. And so we would like to lift up Mother Leslie McSpadden, and she is the mother of the slain 18-year-old Michael Brown Jr. And Michael Brown Jr. was just brutally murdered in the street in Ferguson. And Ferguson has become known synonymously with police killings of black men and protests. It refers to the St. Louis suburb of Ferguson where Michael Brown was shot in 2014 by a police officer. The officer said Brown, then 18, fought with him before running away. Brown's death and the lack of indictment for the officer who killed him led to widespread protests in Ferguson. Businesses were burned and protests filled the streets for these days. And his mother, Sister Leslie McSpadden, has been an advocate against police brutality. And she has just released her book, and she'll be in Houston this coming August 20th. And it's Tell the Truth, Shame the Devil and Tell the Truth. So we lift up Sister Leslie McSpadden on today. We lift up Sister Cleopatra Qualley Pendleton, the mother of Hadia Pendleton, who was shot senselessly by gun violence. And she is an advocate for gun safety. And so we lift her up. And we lift up Sandra Bland's mother, Mother Geneva Reed Veal, and I'm from the city, from the state of Texas, and this case affected me personally. I had an opportunity to talk with the prosecutors. I had an opportunity to protest on her behalf. I actually got to see some of the records that the prosecutors had in order to help look for anything that was suspect. And needless to say, I can't say much about what happened in that particular evidence until everything comes forward, but I can say that we have to totally lift Sister Geneva Reed Veal up as she fights for justice for her daughter. And Sandra Bland, what happened was she failed to signal a lane change this time last year, so a Texas police officer pulled her over. She was questioned why he pulled her over, so he asked her to get out of the car, and eventually he used force to put her on the ground. She was taken to jail, and she died there. They said it was suicide, but we know that it was not suicide. So on today, we lift up Eva Reed Veal, the mother of Sandra Bland. And finally, we would like to lift up the mother of Jordan Baker, and she is our featured caller today, our featured speaker today. Her name is Janet Baker, and just a little bit about this woman's life and her son's life, and she'll go further into the story, and she's going to give us our instructions. She's going to tell us what we need to do in this time of war. So Janet Baker's life was tragically altered after losing her only son and only child, Jordan Baker, on January 16, 2014. Jordan was racially profiled, erroneously detained, and murdered by an off-duty Houston police officer moonlighting as a security guard. The officer stated he fit the description, an erroneous statement that has exonerated officers countless times around the country as if it were lines pulled from the script on the Shonda Rhimes series, How to Get Away with Murder. After a brief encounter, Jordan's life was needlessly and senselessly ended. As a former human resource generalist, business partner professional in the oil and gas industry for 20 years, Mother Janet was suddenly faced with a life filled with tumultuous changes and losses, fighting for justice for her son and other families around the country who've tasted the bitter reality of the broken justice system. She's become a human rights and social justice advocate for the disenfranchised victims within the criminal justice system. Inspired by the words of God, learn to do good, seek justice, correct oppression, bring justice to the fatherless, plead the widow's cause, Isaiah 1:17, she has channeled her tragedy into triumph by hosting her own local radio show, 92.9 FM HD2, and her online audience, www.kcohtv.com, titled Journey to Justice, Becoming a Voice for the Voiceless. Through grief and the apparent uphill battle facing her and her family, she's forging ahead, facilitating a change in the hearts and minds of those listening while tackling the societal biases that lead to injustice. In the end, the truth will prevail. And so on today, we would like to welcome and lift up and pray for and give love to our dear, beloved Queen Mother, one of the mothers of the movement, Sister Janet Baker. Welcome, Sister Janet. Are you there?
I'm here. Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay, Sadia?
Oh, absolutely we can hear you, Mother Janet.
Okay, because I've been told that my voice tends to be a little soft. I blame my mom for that. But,
yes, ma'am.
First and foremost, I have to thank you for creating this safe space and what you do. And always, I know I've told you before, but standing beside me, with me, during the most difficult time of my life. I want to thank you for all that you've done and all that you continue to do. I never want to not take the opportunity while I have breath in my body to give thanks. So I thank you, my sister, for that and all that you've done.
Oh, sis, it has truly been my honor and pleasure to stand beside you. I cannot fathom that which you have endured, and the least I can do is help gird you and help lift you up in this what you're doing. And your strength is phenomenal. I mean, I've seen you from a distance, and I've seen you up close, and your strength is, oh my goodness, it is something to reckon with. And so we thank you. We truly thank you, sis.
Oh, I'm honored, and I always say that I never want Jordan's name to go away in the abyss. So, again, that's why platforms like these and, as you mentioned in my bio, the radio show, and what gave birth to that was trying to cope and understand what has happened. You know how they say rhyme and reason? There is no rhyme. There is no reason. And meeting other mothers, all of the mothers that you honor, with the exception of one, I had the pleasure of meeting them a couple of months ago at an event in several other opportunities we've spoken one-on-one, and we try to lift each other up and be there for one another. And I've stated, too, at the beginning of the radio show that it's as if it's a sorority that no one pledged. With all the moms, none of us asked for this life, and it's a purpose. We try to push through the pain to be a catalyst for change, and that's within the community. That's lifting up our children to protect them. We protect them when they're here. We nurture our children when they're here, and in these instances, having our children tragically stolen from us, their lives stolen from us, we still want to protect their legacy and their name. So many times, as you stated, a war, in these instances, it's as if, and in my specific case, my son Jordan, he was a victim and he was vilified. And I've watched time and time again when there's a character assassination, that is further adding extreme amounts of insult to injury. And you'll hear me say that throughout my talk tonight. Tremendous insult to the unfathomable amount of pain and injury that we've sustained.
So set the record straight, Mother Janet. Tell us about Jordan. Who was your beautiful son? Tell us about him.
And I want to say it's hard sometimes to speak of him in the past tense because I feel that his energy is just in my heart. But to describe Jordan is he was my everything. And his character as a man, the most beautiful thing about Jordan was his ability to change the environment or the temperature in a room. And I loved his spirit and his energy. And I love the father that he was to his sons. He was amazing. I was so proud. Any event that we had, I'd watch Jordan come into the room, and it's as if when the two of them, he took such care. When they would walk in, and I always said that Jordan, the way his eyes would reflect the utmost adoration for his dad. And it pains me so much to know that he has this tremendous void. I've often stated, what do you do when your superhero is shot down and destroyed? Imagine what that is to someone you care about. I care about my grandson dearly, and on a daily basis, I'm left with the most beautiful relationship. He would always say his dad was his number one, his best friend. And I can't imagine what he's going through. It pains me so much. I have such a hard time on a day-to-day coping. I can't imagine for little Jordan. And when I watch him, and some nights it's bad, and it's just certain things within myself. There are events that will trigger a memory, and then it's this tremendous amount of like a dark cloud, and it's hard to bounce back from that. And I was saying on the radio show right before school ended, there was an event where it's Take Your Sons and Daughters to Work Day. Had I known, he wouldn't have gone to school that day because the majority of his classmates were with their, especially his close friends, were with their dads. And he had a setback. He cried the entire night. And we as parents, we try hard to protect our children and our grandchildren. And for me, it's a pain that I can't take it away. And each day is another step in the journey, seeking justice for Jordan, but also in finding purpose through this pain, it's putting in the work. And the one thing that from a year and a half ago, I got the verdict, I didn't expect, and Sadia, I know you were there with me when the officer was exonerated. I was constantly in prayer, and I just remembered it was as if there was a small voice that was telling me God would get the victory. And I know that faith, I have a tremendous amount. If his only need is that mustard seed, faith without works is dead. What's the work? And that's my question. What's the work that needs to happen? What needs to take place? Because it's as if, and as some of the moms, and we talk about it, it's a genocide. And we want to be there. Unfortunately, I can't bring Jordan back. However, little Jordan is a black man growing up in this society, and I need him to feel safe. I need to provide for him, to provide foremost answers. So shortly after Jordan was taken from us, he was in tears, and he said, "What are you going to do?" And I remember I wasn't prepared for that. He normally would bottle things up, and when he asked me this question, and it's an honest question, I didn't have the answer, and that has plagued me. And that has plagued me, coupled with the tremendous void and going through the day-to-day and just trying to understand. I often say that myself and other mothers, it's as if the pain, it gives us a language that we speak, and it's the language of grief. Speaking to those other mothers, we all struggle in our own way trying to figure out what's the work to do some good. I want to protect my grandson. I want to provide a safe environment for him. I want him to, I said, no rhyme, no reason, and with the tremendous amount of insult to injury. As you stated earlier, Sister Sadia, you mentioned that on January 16, 2014, that night, Jordan was taken from me. The off-duty officer that was moonlighting as a security guard, it's as if, well, I'll tell you what the story, and listen to as I loosely say story, this is the narrative that has been, as I'm seeking in the quest for justice, so many times this narrative has been garnered to exonerate the officers. I was in fear for my life. And the story always ends the same. It exonerates the officer, and it in some way blames the victim, and all of the verbiage and everything else that comes along after the story is somehow garnered to exonerate the officer and blame the victim. What I do know and what I can share is from that night, I still don't have all the answers. I know that the story or the narrative was that Jordan fit the description and of a suspect, and there was a scuffle ensued. And after the scuffle and the encounter, there was Jordan at some point reached in his waistband, and the officer, fearing for his life, shot him. However, the statement doesn't address the fact that Jordan had bruises all over his body, and please note that the officer didn't have any bruises at all. Also, to add tremendous amount of insult to injury, the alleyway in which Jordan was slain is where the businesses in that strip center, the shopping strip center, all the local businesses, they throw their trash. That's where they dump their trash. He was hunted down like prey, slaughtered, and just thrown away and discarded in a trash-strewn alley. And after he was killed, I later found out that they handcuffed him and hogged in a hog tie fashion, like he was an animal. So again, he was hunted down like prey and then shackled by his hands and feet. Now, my heart aches at the thought of his last breath, him being face down in trash and being taken away from me forever. And he was forced into a situation where it was a case of mistaken identity that led to his senseless and needless killing of Jordan. And you asked who was Jordan to me. He was my only son, my only child. And this has tragically altered my life forever. It feels like I'm in a constant replay mode of trying to cope, understand what has happened. And on some, people say, there are good days and bad days. I think they're just days because each day I'm left with trying to pick up the pieces. And I pray, and I've always stated that God is going to get the glory. And I have to be honest, I'm human. And when I look around and I see 2.5 years ago just how completely different my life is, I never expected to be here. And so many conversations of jokes saying, Jordan, I wonder what he would be doing now. I know that he had goals, and I know that he was a person, when he set out to do something, he accomplished it. So I'm so saddened by the fact that I won't see him, and that's the weakness, and I know that that's the flesh, and I won't see him be able to be the example for his son. And in the short amount of years that he had with him, he was so amazing, and I grieve tremendously for little Jordan because he doesn't have that example. He doesn't have that superhero. He doesn't have that relationship. He doesn't have that close bond. And for Jordan, I grieve again because I wanted to see just with all the things that he put his mind to. He was saying, I got a plan. And we always laugh because he spoke with his hands. And most people say, I do as well. And so he came by that honestly. He would say, hey, I got a plan. And I was like, what's your plan? And on the last call that I had with him, he stated, he called and he said, hey, they moved locations. And he said, but I just got a new job. It's going to be perfect because it's perfect for my schedule with little Jordan. And he was a little tired because he was doing a lot. His little son, new job that he didn't really like, but it fit his purpose. The end was going to justify the means to an end. He was going to work his plan, and this was strategic and part of it. And I said, baby, it sounds like he's got it all worked out. The program that he'd enrolled in was to increase his hourly rate. And he said that would be great for little Jordan. And he said he could probably go back to oil and gas because that's what he was doing, working at North National Oil and Barco, NOV. And he said they'll pay, the plan was tuition reimbursement. And I'm thinking, look at you, you're working it out. But my last words were, sounds like you've got it all worked out, baby. And it was a faint, yeah. I said, I love you, baby, bye. And he said, I love you too. And that was it. And it planned that over and over. We hold on to what was because it was the last. And I wish that I knew, oh, my God, and I can't even go there because I couldn't finish speaking on his behalf. But I did know that that was going to be, Jordan would have accomplished his goals, because everything that he accomplished to date prior to him being taken away from me, he was so victorious in what he was doing. And just, again, the extreme relationship. He and I were extremely close. So, again, having a part of you ripped apart and ripped from you, stolen from you, it's hard to continue and go through the day-to-day. And I know, again, as I told you, Sadia, you have to stop me, because I intend to go on, and I wanted to.
Well, we want to know your story. We want to know your story and where you are, because we know that the story doesn't end, because after the officer was set free, knowing the evidence did not line up, you didn't sit down. You didn't stop. You didn't lay down. You didn't give up. You didn't throw your hands up. What did you do?
A lot of time, as I stated before, it's as if I experienced an emotional paralysis, and I kept thinking, you can't. I was still, from the onset of getting the news of Jordan being taken from me, I remember going back to work, going through the motions, and still seeking answers and trying desperately not to allow his name to go in the abyss. When you and I met, that was after a year of searching and trying to obtain answers for Jordan. A year, and to no avail, until I attended a town hall meeting. And I think that was a moment that changed where I am today, because going through the town hall meeting, going through the process of the grand jury, and then finding out what do I need to do, meeting other mothers, I think that saved me from the abyss of my emotions, and I think it sparred me from being in the emotional paralysis. Meeting the other moms, and now again, my former life, I mourn that, because everything is different. But meeting the other moms and speaking with them, and they understand. They have the sleepless nights. They have the for me, panic attacks, and I've heard other mothers say the same exact things that they experience. What do you do? Seeking answers. I went to the Million Moms March prior to the Million Men March, and there were some of the moms, and that's where I met Maria Hamilton. And I was able to witness organizers for that event. We stayed in the same lobby, and they were giving me suggestions. And I remember leaving saying, God, I wish I had a playbook, because when something like this happens, you don't have a playbook. You don't know what to do. And you know that if you stand still, then if you don't make certain decisions, a decision will be made for you. So I have to give credit, because ultimately, stating God will get the glory, He's already got this situation worked out. But again, I constantly, when I wake up and I say my prayers before my feet hit the floor, I've learned to say, not my will, but your will be done. And I'm crying out to say, looking at the discouragement, I can't look at the enemy's plan. I have to focus on God. What is your plan? Because you have a plan to give us hope, to give us purpose, and to give us hope. That has sustained me to say, seeking what His will is. And part of it is speaking to the other moms, finding solutions to understanding. And it's as if there's a common thread. Attending the Circle of Mothers event a couple of months ago, there were different moms who were faced with victimized by, we were survivors, our children were the victims.
Mm-hmm.
They were the victims of police brutality, and there were so many states represented there. And the close bond that we have in speaking to their story and their journeys, it's giving insight to what needs to be done here home for me. And the radio show that you mentioned, this was just an example of God's timing, not mine, but His timing. Being able to create this platform for other mothers, other family members, because when we lose our children, it affects, it's as if the foundation of the family is crumbling. And speaking to the other family members around the country, we try to provide that safe space because in so many instances, as I stated before, the narrative is that the victims are vilified. I mean, you stated it, what's going on in our country recently with Alton Sterling. I knew in a couple of days I'm going to see his police record. I'm going to hear everything that he's ever done, maybe back to third grade. And what troubles me is, do we ever hear anything about the officers? You may hear a coin statement of 10-year veteran, 1-year veteran, however long they've been on the force. And that's it. And maybe the position or the department in which they work. But outside of that, it's all of the negativity that's around in the efforts to vilifying the victims. So part of the show, the radio show, Journey to Justice, and the name itself came from me doing private, trying to just somehow cope, private videos where it started out, I was chronicling the journey to justice for Jordan. And each day I would speak, and I would ask little Jordan if this could be a coping mechanism for him. So there's these video logs, primarily of me just trying to talk, and it was such a catharsis, and it was helping, and it was, again, I feel Jordan's energy, so it was me talking about him and processing my own journey to get some type of rationale on what's happened and what needs to happen going forward. So it's speaking to the producer, which was a friend of mine from high school, and we did a gospel radio show when I was in my 20s. She approached me and said, hey, I think it'd be great if you did a show. And I just remember crying profusely because I felt as if, God, you've been telling me all along, and it's coming in phases, and this is just another step. And the name, she was like, you need to figure out a name. You need to, she's giving me the steps and to what I would need to do to produce this segment. And it had already been done from the video logs, and it's when, as I stated, it's almost as if when the purpose comes into fruition. So part of the plan or the destiny was the birth of, this is a tool, this is a witty invention, so to speak, to be utilized to helping other families. So in therein lies, I shortened it to Journey to Justice, because a lot of what I'm trying to accomplish is to provide that safe space where another family member knows that I'm not trying to trick you, and we always feel, who do we trust? What do we say? Or I don't want to say the wrong thing. And I've always been taught, don't worry about it if you're telling the truth. So I do know, again, as I stated, the truth will prevail. So I know I've jumped around a lot, and I just wanted to, it's really hard because each time it's a little, it's as if you're bearing your soul. And bearing my soul and you'll do any. I know I've talked to other family members, and they say the same thing. You'll do anything for your love of your child. And
what are some of the things that you've done? I know you've been traveling a lot. Concerning police brutality, concerning being, a mother who's left with a hole in her heart. Tell us some of the things that you've done and the people you've met on this journey to advocate on behalf of your son.
Wow, it's almost as if I'd have to go back through a lot of the logs where I was chronicling, because like most people would always say, even Jordan had my personality in some degrees. I tend to be very passive, and from over 2.5 years ago till to date, it's been so much has happened. And I think it started with, as I was stating before, the Million Moms March was sponsored, or the founder, Maria Hamilton, who was at the DNC this week. I met with her and her organizing team, and meeting with that team, it gave me a perspective on truly being an advocate for Jordan and for others whose human rights have been violated. So it was understanding, taking looking at Texas law versus some of the other states that the other mothers reside in, and finding ways to put in some of the much-needed work in understanding that there's been understanding what that work is, and through the different areas, like they're meeting with some of the other moms in New York, some of the New York moms, meeting with them, Eric Garner's mom, Gwen Carr. Oh, my God. I always say that the New York moms, wow, they're a force to be reckoned with. Gwen Carr, Romali Graham's mother is Constance Malcolm. Kadi Diallo, Amadou Diallo's mother, Mohammed Ba's mother, Mrs. Ba. They're such beautiful souls. Now, they've gone to the governor, and they've gotten a special prosecutor in cases when there are officer-involved shootings. In Texas, this is something that I've gone to Austin to testify. We didn't get as far as they have. But, again, speaking to different mothers in different parts of the United States, it helps. Sabrina Fulton, when I attended the Circle of Mothers, Madam Secretary Hillary Clinton was the keynote speaker. And I know a lot of people have their statements about on the political side. However, we when we're searching for the work and understanding what that is, you have to start somewhere. You can't, sitting in opposition is not going to create those safe spaces for our children. It's not going to create the safe spaces for little Jordan and others. It's just not. So that's some of the work as well. Meeting with her, meeting with the different moms, and then wanting to create, because when most of us experience this tragedy with a tragic, life-altering experience, there's a huge portion of self-care that's neglected. So
talk about that.
It's when I said the key words, the emotional paralysis, having panic attacks, and it's as if you are experiencing PTSD and you just coping day to day. And some of the moms I have spoken to, and I won't reveal their names because we're protective of one another and just to safeguard. Right. One of the moms said, I'm always afraid. Sometimes if I'm in a situation this particular mom, she witnessed the death of her child, so she doesn't feel it's an extreme gap of trust. She says, I panic in certain situations. If lights in a flash behind her in her car, she says she goes into a mode where it's as if her heart is palpitating. So having heart palpitations, and that's the other moms. Personally, there's a tremendous, it is hard for me to share, but it is. I mean, it's financial impact that it devastates us. And most of the moms and I always say moms because we tend to have our own little network of, we call each other. I went through a period of time where I would have the panic attacks, and it's as if I couldn't breathe. I'd go to sleep, and then I'd wake up as if I couldn't breathe. And then I'd feel it's just like doom, and the walls are closing in. And I'd always, some nights I had one mom, her name is Darlene Kane, she's in Baltimore. She works in the hospital, third shifter. So she'd always say, "Sis, it's okay. You can call me anytime. If you can't talk, I'll stay up with you when I can talk on my break." And just those times of kindness, with it being so expensive to travel around the country. There's one mom, her name is Marion Gray Hopkins. She was talking to me, and she said, "Janet, it's kind of expensive." She said, "Why don't you just come and stay with me?" Because we were going to an event in D.C. And she said, "You can just stay at my house and then save some of that money for you and little Jordan." And I just remember weeping because she opened up her home and her heart, and it's for that constant strength. We are focusing with different groups. Researching. There's a URLEA, Uniform Reporting Law Enforcement Improvement Act. We're doing research to find alternatives to finding ways to change the way these investigations are handled. So there's work on so many fronts, and I jumped around, but the self-care part, I've had therapists, different psychiatrists. I'm trying to put something together where we create, even if it's an online presence. For me, I came to the mom, I thought it would be really beautiful if you're having that moment where it's like a breaking point, trying to cope through the day-to-day, if you could reach out and speak to a licensed therapist or someone that could help. So I'm trying to put things that people don't realize what a parent goes through in those instances. So it's just a long work, and I'm still hoping for, I've not given up for Jordan.
Now, what I wanted to do is we have one of our founders, a couple of our founders who are currently on the line. Let me see if I can. Sister Wakiti, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
I see you. And I just wanted to just open the floor up to you, Sister Wakiti, and Sister did I see Sister Oshia? But I just wanted to open up the floor, Sister Janet. This is Queen Wakiti. She is our Chief Executive Officer. And, she's been very instrumental in bringing together the Queen Calls. And I just want an opportunity for Sister Wakiti to address us, if you don't mind, Sister Wakiti.
I just want to first say thank you all for joining today. And I really, really am extremely honored to have Mrs. Janet Baker on the line. I, of course, followed the case of your wonderful son, and I admired your strength from afar. And I do know that Queen Sadia and people like Derek Muhammad were front and center in making sure that not only were you protected, but that you had a strong force around you, because as we talk about the topic here, and the topic being the Queen's position in a time of war, we're not at all, and I'm sure you have come to this conclusion as well, that our children are being under attack. Our children, our husbands, our sons. Of course, this is an all-out war against us, and it is extremely important that we as a community come to the aid and come to the side of people like you. And I can feel your hurt. I can feel your heart. I can feel your soul pouring out, trying to find a way. And that should not just be up to you, because when you're hurting, all of us are hurting. And I'm so grateful that Queen Sadia had the thought and the mind to put together a call like this and to reach out to you so that we as a community can show you that we're here for you, that you definitely don't have to suffer in silence and you're not suffering alone. And in the time of war, our positions as queens, we must close ranks. We must be able to stand shoulder to shoulder to show when one of us is hurting, it's not going to fall like that. We're not going to allow the other to just fall and crumble because of something that has been done that is extremely unjust, that is extremely wicked at the core, that we are here for our sisters, that we are here for our children, that we are here for our community. And so thank you for gracing us with your presence. Thank you for continuing the fight. And, of course, you did not have a blueprint, and you definitely did not have a guide, as you mentioned, but you have led by example. And I pray that none of us ever have to follow that example, but knowing that the devil is wicked as he is, we know that if anything should happen, you are an excellent resource now for our community. I hate that it had to happen this way, but you're such a jewel, and we don't know what trials that God puts us through, but we do know that they become testimonies for other people. And just listening to your story has been extremely inspirational for me. I know that this is the conversation now that I have to go back and have with my son. It's a conversation now that I have to go back and have with my husband, with my nephews, with the community as a whole, with my male students, and the females as well. Because you have people like the Rekia Boyds and all of these other women, like the Sandra Blands, obviously, who have been completely murdered. And so we cannot tolerate that to consistently happen in our community. I applaud your strength. I applaud your openness and your willingness to share. This cannot be easy. It cannot be easy, and I don't even want to imagine or put myself in your shoes because it's unfathomable. But I thank you so much, Queen, for gracing us with your presence, for touching us so much with your sincerity. I can just feel the sincerity oozing out, and I pray that we'll be able to work together in the future with Queendom Come, that you'll continue to allow us to be a part of your healing and your journey. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Even those words are so comforting, and it gives me a little bit of, it's adding to the hope, and it just makes me feel like God is here. He'll never ever leave us nor forsake us, and he's telling me, look at what I'm bringing. He strategically places his anointed. So Sadia reaching out, this platform that you guys have, the organization that you have, I think that that's going to be God strategically. I think that is evident of him strategically placing his anointed. So I thank you all. And so many people could have been so many other places if they took time to listen to me. And as you said, you followed. Anytime someone says that they follow or they lift up Jordan's name, I'm so appreciative of that. So I thank you. And I thank you all for just listening.
And just know we love you and we're here. Like, we're truly here. All you have to do is pick up the phone, and the Queendom will be right there by your side, sis. And so just to let you know, listeners, Queen Mother Janet, she'll be, again, giving us her presence, her grace, her words, her heart on August 27th. The Nation of Islam is hosting a brunch Saturday. More information will be coming August 27th. And along with Michael Brown's mother, she'll be there to give her testimony as well. August 27th, and the venue will be coming soon. So make sure that you log on to myqueendomcome.org. Again, that's myqueendomcome.org, and her information will be up. Do you have a website or a Facebook page, Mother Janet, that we can go to, or GoFundMe account that we could support you and your grandson?
Where everything is under construction, the website is, and I think that there's one of the groups that's putting together something for producing the show, as you stated before, the Legal Defense Fund, and there were a couple of other things, and especially for little Jordan. I can probably get that to you a little later. I think it was crowdfunding, Janet Baker. I think it's Janet Baker 5. I don't know if it's live yet, but it's in crowdfunding and Janet Baker 5.
And what we'll do is we'll add the link to our page as well, so that those who are interested that want to support you and your grandson and support justice for Jordan will upload the link on myqueendomcome.org. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If there are no further questions or comments, Sister Waikiki, we good? I think we are. So at this time, we'll end our call, but just to remind you, our next Queen call will be August 25th at 7:30 Central. Again, that's August 25th, 7:30 Central. And remember, when you teach a man, you teach an individual, but when you teach a woman, you teach a whole civilization. We thank you, we love you, and we look forward to hearing and seeing you soon. Thank you again, Mother Janet, and we'll talk with you later.
Thank you, guys. Bye.